perfect life together. We don't have kids yet, but we've been trying, at least, that's what I thought until recently. This all started about a month ago. Emily had been acting distant, brushing off my attempts to talk, and staying late at work more often than usual. I chalked it up to stress. She's been trying to get a promotion at her job, and I wanted to be supportive. Little did I know that her late nights had nothing to do with work. Then, last week, my stepsister Julie dropped a bomb on me. Julie's a couple of years younger than me at 28, and while we've never been particularly close, we've always gotten along. She's my dad's daughter from his second marriage, and she recently moved back to town after breaking up with her boyfriend. Since she didn't have anywhere else to go, I offered her a room at our place. Emily wasn't thrilled, but Julie promised it was temporary, so we both agreed. Julie noticed something was off right away. "Your wife's acting sketchy," she said one evening while we were sitting in the kitchen. I waved her off, saying Emily was just stressed. But Julie didn't buy it. "You might want to pay closer attention," she warned. "I think something's going on." At first, I didn't take her seriously. I mean, Emily and I have been through rough patches before, but we always work through them. Besides, Julie can be blunt to a fault, and I figured she was overreacting. But then things started happening that I couldn't ignore. One night, Emily came home later than usual, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. When I asked her about it, she got defensive. "I had to give a coworker a ride home," she snapped. "It's not a big deal." But her tone said otherwise. Then there were the messages. I accidentally saw one when her phone buzzed on the counter. It was from someone named Alex and read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." When I confronted her, she brushed it off as a joke between friends. I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me something wasn't right. That's when Julie stepped in again. She'd overheard one of Emily's phone calls and put two and two together. "She's cheating on you, Mark," Julie said bluntly. "You need to do something about it." I was floored. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I knew Julie was right. Emily was pulling away from me emotionally and physically, and the evidence was piling up. I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. One evening, after Emily left for one of her work meetings, Julie sat me down and dropped the most outrageous suggestion I'd ever heard. "You know," she said, her voice low and conspiratorial, "if you want revenge, I could help." I stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" She leaned closer, a wicked glint in her eye. "If Emily's out there doing whatever she wants, maybe you should too. You know, with me." I laughed, thinking she was joking. But Julie didn't laugh. Her face was serious, almost daring me to say yes. "Julie, that's insane," I said, standing up and pacing the kitchen. "You're my stepsister." She shrugged, completely unfazed. "We're not blood related. Besides, it's not like she deserves your loyalty anymore. Why not have some fun for once?" "I won't tell if you won't." Her words hung in the air, tempting and dangerous. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I was furious with Emily, and the idea of getting back at her was appealing in a twisted way. On the other, this was Julie, my stepsister. Crossing that line felt like opening Pandora's box. For the rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about her proposition. I knew it was wrong, but part of me wanted to take her up on it, if only to feel like I had some control over my life again. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Should I confront Emily and try to salvage our marriage, or is it already too late? And as for Julie, is she just trying to help, or is she playing a dangerous game? The week after Julie's proposition was a blur. Emily was still coming home late, acting like everything was fine when I knew it wasn't. My head was a mess. Every time she walked through the door, I wanted to scream at her, demand the truth, but I didn't have the courage. What if I was wrong? What if I pushed her away completely? At the same time, every time Julie crossed my path, her words echoed in my mind. Why not have some fun for once? I hated how tempted I was. It wasn't just what she said. It was the way she said it. Julie had always been bold, but now there was something magnetic about her. She seemed to relish the chaos, like she knew how much her suggestion had rattled me. Every now and then, she'd throw me a sly look or make an offhand comment that sent my thoughts spiraling. Meanwhile, I started digging. I couldn't sit in the dark anymore, pretending everything was fine. I didn't trust Emily to give me the truth, so I decided to find it myself. It started small, checking her social media, looking through her messages when she left her phone unattended. Nothing obvious popped up, just cryptic exchanges and deleted threads that only deepened my suspicion. Then one night, while Emily was in the shower, I saw it. An email notification from Alex popped up on her laptop. It wasn't just the name that made my stomach drop. It was the subject line, "Looking forward to tomorrow night, winky face." That was it. I couldn't pretend anymore. I opened the email, heart pounding, and found a string of messages that spelled out everything I was afraid to admit. They'd been meeting up for weeks, sneaking around behind my back, and from the way he described her, it wasn't just physical. They were laughing at me, planning a future I wasn't a part of. I slammed the laptop shut, shaking with anger. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. Confront her? Smash her laptop? Pack my things and leave? But then Julie's voice came back, calm and confident, cutting through the noise in my head. "If she's doing whatever she wants, maybe you should too." The thought made me feel sick and alive, curling up next to me like nothing had happened. I stared at the ceiling, fists clenched, trying to hold myself together. I didn't know what hurt more, her betrayal or the fact that she thought I was too stupid to notice. The next day, Julie cornered me in the living room. She could tell something was different. "What happened?" she asked, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to tell her, but the words came spilling out before I could stop them. "She's been seeing someone," I said, my chin darkened. She didn't look surprised, just angry. "I told you," she said softly. "You didn't want to believe me, but now you know." I nodded, swallowing hard. I don't know what to do. Julie stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "Yes, you do." Answer. The truth was, my pride was shattered. I felt humiliated, powerless, and worse, like nothing I did would fix it. Maybe Julie could see it in my face because she softened, reaching out to touch my arm. "I'm not saying you have to decide anything right now," she said, "but just think about it. You deserve better than this. And if you ever want to stop being the good guy for 5 minutes, you know where to find me." She left me standing there, torn between rage and temptation. I spent the rest of the day trying to avoid her, but it was impossible. Everywhere I turned, there she was, smirking in the kitchen, brushing past me in the hallway, always so casual but never letting me forget what she'd said. That night, Emily came home late again. I was sitting in the living room, nursing a beer, when she walked in, all smiles. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "Sorry I'm late. Long day." I stared at her, trying to read her face, but all I saw was the same calm mask she'd been wearing for weeks. "Yeah," I said flatly. "Long day for me too." She didn't notice the edge in my voice. She just nodded, kissed my cheek like it was nothing, and headed upstairs. I sat there for a long time after she was gone, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to confront her, demand an explanation, but another part of me knew it wouldn't matter. She'd just lie, like she always did. And even if she didn't, what could she say that would make it better? Julie found me in the kitchen later that night, staring blankly at the sink. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, watching me. Then, without warning, she stepped closer, so close I could feel her breath on my neck. "You're going to let her get away with it, aren't you?" she murmured. "You're just going to sit here and pretend everything's fine." Her words hit me like a slap. I turned to face her, anger bubbling to the surface. "What do you want from me, Julie? You think this is easy for me?" "No," she said, her voice calm. "I think you're scared. And I think you're tired of being scared." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I couldn't look away. She was right. I was tired of the lies, the betrayal, the feeling that my life was spiraling out of control. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a choice, even if it was a dangerous one. But what would that choice cost me? The night it happened, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss. Emily had left for another late meeting, and I knew exactly where she was going. She didn't even bother to come up with a decent excuse anymore. The trust was gone, and I couldn't remember the last time we even had a real conversation. She came home, she smiled, she lied, and I let her. That was our routine now. I was sitting in the kitchen, nursing my second beer of the night, when Julie walked in. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt that barely reached her thighs, her hair still damp from a shower. She leaned against the counter, watching me for a moment before speaking. "She's with him, isn't she?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Julie sighed, crossing the room to sit across from me. "You don't deserve this, Mark. You know that, right?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah? Well, knowing it doesn't change anything." For a moment, neither of us said anything. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that wraps around you and makes you feel like the walls are closing in. Julie broke the silence first. "Come with me," she said, standing up. I frowned. "What?" She held out her hand, her expression unreadable. "Just come with me." I hesitated, but something in her voice made me follow her. She led me upstairs, to her room at the end of the hall. When we got inside, she closed the door behind us and turned to face me. "You've been beating yourself up over this for weeks," she said. "It's killing you. And for what? So she can keep sneaking around with some guy who doesn't give a damn about you?" I opened my mouth to argue, but she cut me off. Don't defend her. She's not worth it, Mark. Not anymore." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to deny it, to hold on to some shred of hope that Emily and I could fix things, but I couldn't. Julie was right. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't even recognize. Julie stepped closer, her voice soft but insistent. "You deserve better. You deserve to feel like you matter." Her hand brushed against mine, tentative at first, but when I didn't pull away, her fingers laced through mine. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it, but I didn't move. I couldn't. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered. "Let me help you." I stared at her, torn between every instinct telling me this was wrong and the undeniable pull of her words. She was standing so close now, her eyes searching mine for a sign, a hint of what I was feeling. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Instead, I closed the distance between us, my lips crashing against hers in a kiss that was equal parts desperation and anger. For a moment, everything else faded away. The lies, the betrayal, the pain. It all disappeared, leaving only the two of us. But as quickly as it started, reality came rushing back. I pulled away, guilt and confusion twisting in my gut. "I can't do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Julie looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Yes, you can. And you already did." I shook my head, backing away toward the door. "I need to think." "Think all you want," she said, her tone sharper now. "But don't pretend this didn't happen." I left her room feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I spent the rest of the night in the living room, staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of what I'd just done. Julie didn't come downstairs, and when Emily came home hours later, I pretended to be asleep. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't look at Julie without remembering the way her lips felt against mine, and I couldn't look at Emily without wanting to scream at her for what she'd done to us. The tension in the house was unbearable, but no one said anything. It was like we were all waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then it did. One night, Emily came home drunk. She stumbled through the door, laughing at something on her phone, and didn't even notice me sitting in the dark. When she finally looked up, her smile faded. "What's your problem?" she slurred, dropping her bag on the floor. "My problem?" I said, standing up. "My problem is that my wife is cheating on me." Her eyes widened, but only for a moment. Then she laughed, the sound cold and hollow. "Oh, grow up, Mark. You're so paranoid." "Don't," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Don't you dare lie to me." She rolled her eyes, brushing past me toward the stairs. "I don't have time for this." I grabbed her arm, stopping her in her tracks. "We're done, Emily. You want to keep sneaking around with Alex? Fine. But you're not going to do it while pretending to be my wife." She yanked her arm away, glaring at me. "What are you going to do, huh? Kick me out? Good luck with that. This is my house too." I took a step back, shaking my head. "You're unbelievable." "No," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "You're pathetic. No wonder I had to find someone else. You can't even stand up for yourself? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't let her see it. I turned and walked away, knowing there was no point in arguing anymore. She'd made her choice, and now I had to make mine. The next morning, I called a lawyer. The divorce process is brutal, as I expected it would be. Emily doesn't go quietly. Of course, she fights me every step of the way. The house, the savings, even the dog she barely cared about. She suddenly wants it all. Her lawyer makes it clear that she's ready to drag this out as long as it takes to make my life miserable. But I'm ready for her. I come armed with the emails, screenshots, and messages that leave no doubt about her affair. Emily's smug demeanor cracks the moment my lawyer lays the evidence on the table. For the first time in months, I feel like I've regained some control. In the end, the judge awards her less than she hoped for. She gets a modest settlement and a fraction of the furniture, but I keep the house and most of our joint savings. It's not a victory, though. It feels more like survival. Watching the woman I once loved glare at me from across the courtroom, I can't help but wonder how we got here. How did we go from planning a future together to this? Julie, for her part, doesn't stick around for long. After our kiss, things between us got complicated fast. She wanted more than I was ready to give, and I couldn't untangle my feelings enough to even know what I wanted. Eventually, she packed her things and left, saying it was for the best. I think she was right. Whatever that moment was between us, it wasn't the answer. It was a reaction, a desperate attempt to fill the void Emily had left. Julie's departure is a reminder of how far my life has spiraled out of control. It hurts, but it's necessary. The months that follow the divorce are some of the hardest of my life. I lose weight, more than I should, because I can't eat. I lose sleep because my mind won't stop replaying every argument, every red flag I ignored, every moment that led me here. My friends and coworkers start to notice. They try to be supportive, but there's only so much they can do. Financially, I'm on shaky ground. The legal fees wiped out more than I expected, and keeping the house is proving to be a bigger burden than I thought. Every corner of it feels tainted by memories I can't escape. The kitchen where Emily kissed me goodbye every morning. The living room where she lied to my face about late meetings. The bedroom where I thought we were building a life together. Eventually, I make the decision to sell the house. It's not easy, but I know it's the right thing to do. Holding on to it feels like holding on to the past, and I need to let go if I'm ever going to move forward. The process of rebuilding my life is slow and painful. Therapy becomes a lifeline, helping me unpack the anger, the betrayal, and the guilt. I realize I spent so much time trying to keep the marriage alive that I lost sight of myself. Who was I without Emily? What did I want? The answers don't come easily, but I start to find them piece by piece. I rent a small apartment in the city, far from the old neighborhood and its ghosts. It's not much, but it's mine. I take up running to clear my head and join a local meetup group to force myself out of the house. Slowly, I start to feel like myself again. Maybe even a better version of myself. The hardest part is learning to trust again. Every relationship feels like a risk, every smile or touch loaded with the fear of betrayal. But I remind myself that not everyone is Emily, and not every love story ends in disaster. One day, months later, I run into Julie at a coffee shop. She looks different, happier, maybe. We chat briefly, and she tells me she's seeing someone. I tell her I'm happy for her, and I mean it. Whatever we had, or almost had, is behind us now. We part ways on good terms, and I feel a weight lift as I watch her walk away. As for Emily, I hear through mutual friends that things didn't work out with Alex. Apparently, he wasn't interested in anything serious, and she ended up moving out of town to start fresh. I don't feel vindicated or triumphant when I hear it, just a quiet, detached sense of closure. Her life is her own now, and I've stopped letting it define mine. Looking back, I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I'm learning to see it as a chapter, not the whole story. I'm still here, still standing, and for the first time in years, I feel hopeful about what's ahead. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, I think about what Julie said to me that night. You deserve to feel like you matter. She was right. I do. And now, for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to believe it.